was not near. So I remember every face of every man who put me here. I see my light come shining from the west down to the east. Any day now, any day now, I shall be released. They say every man must need protection. They say every man must fall. Yet I swear I see my reflection somewhere so high above the wall. I see my light come shining from the west down to the east. Any day now, any day now, I shall be released. Any day now, any day now, I shall be released. Any day now, any day now, I shall be released.
Dear John, I thank God for this most amazing, snowy spring day in the mountains. I absolutely love May and the life that it brings. Today is actually my birthday, and although it may feel like it, I am not 150 years old. I am preparing a special dinner for my family, which is really the best present I could ask for. I hope you are able to experience something special in spite of where you are. Maybe that will be my birthday wish this year. I am baking an angel food cake as I do for all my children and grandchildren on their birthdays. I use a secret family recipe passed down to me by my mother, like many of my best qualities. The timer has been set, so while I wait, I thought I would share one last slice of life with you.
Dear Susan,
Although May has ended and June has arrived, I hope it's not too late to wish you a happy birthday. I felt like I was at the table with you enjoying what undoubtedly was a beautiful dinner. There's something spiritual about enjoying a meal with the ones you love. I miss that feeling.
My mother taught me many lessons growing up, but how to bake a cake was my favorite. She always seemed so full of life when she was baking. We had this game we liked to play. My mother would call out the ingredients. Flour, almond extract, sugar, and I would run around the kitchen gathering them up. I remember trying to guess what it was we were making. I saw salt, cream of tartar, eggs, and everything else. I was dumbfounded. It wasn't until she leaned down and whispered in my ear, "Fresh vanilla bean," that I realized it was her secret angel food cake recipe. I was astonished that these things, tasting nothing like angel food cake, were going to come together and be transformed into something so glorious. I immediately looked up and asked, whose birthday is it? My mother told me tomorrow will be your grandmother's 62nd birthday. I was so excited. The next day at my grandmother's house, we celebrated her birthday as we always did, dinner with the family. Upon arrival, I ran in and embraced my grandmother, wishing her a happy birthday. I couldn't help but tell her my new secret. She responded by saying, "This is our secret," and then explained the importance of keeping it. After singing happy birthday, I'll never forget the light in her eyes as she took her first bite. She glanced at me, beaming with approval, and I just felt so special. I had no idea that this birthday would be her last. This is when I learned to cherish life in each of its moments.
I remember as a young boy being at my grandfather's birthday party, running around teasing him for being so old. I made the mistake of getting too close to his chair, and he snatched me up in his arms and sat me on his lap, tickling me. As I squirmed and shrieked, laughing myself to tears, my grandfather smiled and said,
"One day, you may be my age, if you should be so lucky."
Those words ring especially true tonight. If you should be so lucky. Reflecting on your birthday dinner sparked that memory, and the truth of his words dawned on me. Aging is an accomplishment worthy of celebration. So, I hope you had a joyous celebration.
I spent the morning in my garden as I love to do. One is never nearer to God's heart than in a garden. I was collecting vegetables and herbs for dinner just as I had done so many times before, but the difference now is that my achy old knees protest every time I bend down. Nevertheless, I suffered through the pain because kneeling was the only way to get close enough to fully take in the splendor of this sacred place. As I knelt down, I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and enjoyed all the fragrances being offered. The scent of thyme reminded me of when this garden only served to feed my family. The food grown out there season after season provided for each of my children until they were grown. As I sat in my garden alone, reaping another harvest, the cycle of life became so clear to me. Each time I find myself in this garden, my attention is always drawn to my lovely rose bushes. The grandeur is the food for my soul. Habitually, I stop to admire my oldest and best rose bush, planted when my eldest left home and started a life of her own. What makes it the best, I wondered? Is it simply because it's the oldest? Or did it just get the right amount of light and love? Rest assured, John, the next rose bush I plant will be for you in your peace. Isn't it sad when it takes a death to bring families together? And even more so when death destroys them? The last time I had all my children together was when Wayne's father passed away. Like all things in life, we have a choice of how death affects us. As humans, we should gather in life, not death, and rejoice in it. When I was a young lady, I had a friend that married a man named C.C. Shepard. C.C. came from a prominent Cañon City family and was a first-generation prison guard. My friend did not like her husband's idea of making a career behind the walls. She worried that their children would follow in their footsteps, and she thought it was much too dangerous working among all those desperate characters, even if they were only longing for freedom, dignity, respect, and love. She remembered being a young girl in 1900 when, during a brazen escape, a prison guard was murdered. His name was William Rooney, and like C.C. Shepard, was a proud first-generation turnkey. 3 of the 4 escapees were immediately captured. The posse finally apprehended the 4th man, loaded him onto a wagon, and returned him to the prison through Cañon City. An unforgiving lynch mob, contaminated by vengeance, surrounded the wagon and joined in the lawlessness by murdering the man and hanging his body from the town's main telegraph pole. This young man's name was George Witherall. With this haunting experience fixed in her mind, my friend often begged Cece to leave and go work on his family's farm. He's always responded by lovingly reminding her how proud he was to perform his civic duty. It was one of these very mornings, a day like any other, when the news of the prison riot began. Reports of the devastation buzzed through the party lines as reports from the artillery rang through the streets. Smoke billowed from the burning buildings and the acrid tinge of sorrow settled with the ash. Cece Shepard, along with 15 other men, inmate and officer alike, tragically lost their lives that day. I attended Cece's funeral service, and during the eulogy, my heartbroken friend acknowledged the man she loved gave his life in the service of others. Her peace had come from somewhere else altogether. She embraced him every morning before he left for work, sending him off with her love, just like every day might be their last. Her solace came from her goodbye.
I remember one summer, many years ago, I was walking home from the baseball field. I could feel the heat of the late afternoon sun beating down on me. I was approaching the neighborhood corner store when I heard the hum of the coolers sitting on the front porch filled with bottles of ice-cold soda. I inherited my mother's sweet tooth, and I will never forget the empty feeling in my gut rising to my chest as I thought about the taste of sweetness on my tongue. I didn't understand it at the time, but that was the feeling of temptation my father had always warned me about. I could not resist at least exploring the contents of those coolers, so I crept up the steps of the porch and peeked through the glass door. Once I saw the bottles of cream soda right there for the taking, all hope was lost. I snatched a bottle and took off. I ran home so fast I had to wait what seemed like an eternity for the soda to settle back down. There I sat, hiding behind the shed in my backyard, where I could finally indulge myself. The sweetness on my tongue made me forget, just for a moment, that I had done something wrong. My sister May saw me take the last swig and hide the bottle in the bushes. She followed as I strolled through the back door into the house. To my astonishment, there stood my father, side by side with the store owner, Mr. Hawkins, awaiting my inevitable return. I will never forget the sting of my father's hand slapping me in the face, but it paled in comparison to the sting of his words when he called me a thief. "Maybe they'll let you make license plates for a living," he roared. I dug my fingernails into my palms. I pressed so hard I had bruises the next day. As my sister caught my glance, her eyes turned glassy, knowing there was more to come. Mr. Hawkins would never see the weeks of torture that followed.
I felt so foolish. My father was seething. He and Mr. Hawkins had agreed that to pay back my debt, I'd work in the store for the next week. When the door closed behind the store owner, my father grabbed my arm with the force that I still feel. He hurled me down the cellar stairs, breaking my wrist and blooding my face. The only time I would leave that hole for the next week would be to work in that store.
Let us not forget how chaos has connected us. It is through your poor, reckless, and selfish decisions that our lives have intersected. Your words have conveyed to me how much turmoil was in your life for years on end. The fact that your sister is amazing has resounded through our correspondence, though she is undeserving of the life you dealt her. Her loss can never be repaid. Your pain and suffering may have ended in one way, but your actions have only deepened hers. I would understand if she had a quest for vengeance. How does she feel having lost her father, and soon her brother as well?
I cried myself to sleep each night I was down there, alone, and somehow without time. I hope I'll never feel that way again. I built walls to keep myself safe. Sitting here on death row has forced me to look back on my life, to realize that no matter what my father did to me, it couldn't justify taking his life. I discovered the truth about myself that I was never before willing to acknowledge, and the only question I need to ask myself were, what comes before destruction, before a fall?
I built walls to hide my vulnerability, to protect me from more of the pain I suffered. I've held my emotions captive behind these walls, believing that releasing them would make me look weak. In all honesty, dealing with them in any meaningful way just seemed too difficult. In hindsight, I was only fooling myself. Those emotions that made me feel so insecure were merely the symptom of a bigger problem.
I did not realize it at the time, but all the sadness and frustration, the resentment, the failures that I had to grow to be sensitive about, everything that I tried to lock away was going to be released, eventually. Tragically, the only way my pride allowed me to confront all this chaos was to lash out in anger, contaminated by the desire for vengeance.
By not acknowledging the reason why these emotions even arose in the first place, I was setting myself up for this catastrophe. By burying them deeper and deeper, longer and longer, I was creating a monster behind these walls. When I took my first life, how many lives did I ruin? How many generations did I hurt? Can I even begin to restore the damage?
My late husband once took me on a weekend drive to Cañon City. I don't think it was even big enough to be called a city. We happened across a bandstand performance led by inmates. It was enlightening to discover those walls could imprison so much talent. All of the townspeople seemed to be there, and even other inmates were spectating from the crowd. The music was uplifting, melodic, and fun. I will never forget the overwhelming feeling as I recognized the humanity in their music. It was there I met the only other prison warden I ever knew, besides my son. His name was Warden Tynan. He reminded me of a politician as he boasted about his inmate labor crews. He told me about how these men felt a sense of redemption in their hard work, and under his direction, they carved out 2,000 miles of Colorado's scenic thoroughfares. After enjoying the novelty of the soda spring, still in tune with our wonderful experience watching the band, we craved to take in more beauty. So we took heed to his advice and went on a slow ride up Skyline Drive. We found a place to park overlooking the city, and our only lights were those coming from behind the walls and the starlit sky. When Wayne was a young boy, I remember we had taken him to see the movie Cañon City on the big screen. It was so interesting seeing those walls from the inside. We even caught a glimpse of Skyline Drive. Wayne absolutely loved Roy Best and how dramatic he was as he played himself. As hard as I tried to instill in him my love of baseball, even playing with him in the sandlot for hours, for as long as my body would allow, all he would ever talk about was Warden Roy Best. Around the time Wayne was 11, he and his friends snuck into Mr. Williams' pumpkin patch to practice their home run swings. I'll never forget Mr. Williams showing up at my front door with his arm around my son's shoulders. Wayne's head hung low in shame. Mr. Williams explained what Wayne had done, and he handed him over to me, and he smiled, silently acknowledging that boys will be boys. I took Wayne in, sat him down at the kitchen table, and taught him the lesson of respecting other people and their property. Wayne felt so ashamed that his enthusiasm to play baseball disappeared. I wonder how Wayne's action that day affected his life. I wonder what he sees when he looks in the mirror. What do you see when you look in the mirror? How have your actions affected him? Does he see himself as the warden standing proud, reveling in his civic duty? Or will part of him wither away when he turns the knob? He will not speak to me very much about his job. He will not allow me to help carry his burden. I just pray that he knows, even though I am against what he is charged to do, I love him unconditionally, just as your sister loves you.
Susan, thank you for writing to me. Your letters have been such a blessing. Receiving mail behind these walls means so much to us. I must admit, I was taken aback the first time I received a letter from you. I could not comprehend why a stranger would reach out to me, the wretched man that I am. Furthermore, I was shocked the warden was allowing our correspondence once I realized who you were. Up to this point, I have not had many interactions with him, and you have rarely mentioned him in previous letters. So learning about his childhood gave me pause. I'm ashamed to say, I always saw him as my executioner. Reading about the two of you playing baseball in the sandlot forced me to acknowledge that he was someone's son. In fact, he's the son of a woman I consider a dear friend.
through the bars on my cell, waiting my final judgment, I can see the room I will die in. I am no longer tormented by the dreams that have died. My only despair now comes from memories relived. My death tomorrow is a necessary evil, I suppose, and it pains me to know that I have put your son in this position to have to carry out this evil as a matter of his civic duty. Susan, I am so deeply sorry for putting you and your family in this position. You have been merciful and forgiving, a light in the darkness, and your mercy is without question a sign of your strength.
I say a final prayer of mercy for each rose I remove from the branch. I realize the lessons to be learned from their imperfections. I preserve these roses as the centerpiece of my dining room table, hoping the love and happiness they signify lingers. The roses are also displaying their suffering for visitors coming from afar to celebrate my birthday and witness the final petal fall. Some with astonishment, awful enjoyment, or some kind of awe. The table is set, and justice will soon be served, I suppose. Your heartfelt remorse has been profoundly moving to me. You have never once appealed your conviction, nor have you sought a stay of execution. Only stating the debt must be paid is an eye for an eye, a life for a life. We have talked about our God being merciful and forgiving, so wouldn't you think that an eye for an eye means that if you take my eye, you offer your own by taking my hand and leading me? How will you be remembered? When I stand in front of the mirror, I look at this old, weathered face. I see a mother to all those in need. My goodness, John. Thinking about all this fills my heart with such sadness. The aroma of caramelized meringue is pulling me from this incredibly sorrowfsorrowful letter. What a collection of memories and reflections on my own life. Joy and sorrow are woven fine. I need to pause for a moment to make some final preparations for dinner. But now, more importantly, I need to gather myself and collect my thoughts.
May and I had dinner a little while ago. It was so much harder than I expected. I haven't thought about food the past few days, as you can imagine. In fact, I haven't thought about food until I read your letter about your angel food cake. May was in no mood either. Such a strange feeling to know I was having my last meal and about to say my final goodbyes. No one is prepared for an experience like that.
She was just so nervous. Seeing her so out of sorts made me feel the deepest sadness I've ever felt. All I could think was, my God, what have I done? Please forgive me. Please forgive me. I did my best not to show her how tormented I was in that moment. So I stood up tall, and I gave her a hug that I never wanted to end.
For the briefest moment, these walls disappeared. I tried to smile bravely, but I could not hold back the tears. So we just sat and cried together. It felt cleansing. No anger, no judgment, just us.
It was time to eat, and I could see that anxious look in her eyes. That food was the last thing on her mind. Guided by my sweet tooth, I asked, "Do you want to share a cream soda?" May's eyes twinkle. She saw me.
You asked me, what do I see when I look in the mirror? The question hit me like a ton of bricks. After that horrible day, I didn't recognize myself. I saw a sinner. I saw a man who murdered his father and abandoned his sister. A man who allowed his past to lead him down the path of destruction. I saw the very disgrace my father saw in me my whole life. And I also saw a man who deserved to die. An eye for an eye, a life for a life. Then your first letter arrived.
When you reached out to me, Susan, I was resting in the company of the dead. I felt irredeemable. It was your words of wisdom that flooded my heart like a rushing stream, filling me with hope and humanity. You do not judge me or condemn me. You constantly remind me it's never too late to do the right things. You also never minced your words together and told me the hard truth that a man in shorter time needed to hear. Your kindness changed me, Susan, and I'm infinitely grateful for our friendship.
Nothing lifts my spirits more than dinner with the family. It was as it always is. They fill their bellies with nourishment as my cup runs over with love and satisfaction. I have provided for all, which has, in turn, provided for me. I have struggled finding the words to close, knowing that they will be the last words I'm able to afford you. This is goodbye. I thought that I might once more try to inspire you to seek relief from this most absurd punishment. Retribution offers no restoration. I thought you were just being stubborn. Now I know you believe this is what you must do, as much as I believe you should not. I have tried to reveal to you your worth as a human being, yet you remain firm in your resolve. I will never admit that you have convinced me of your perspective. I will, though, however much it pains me, support you in this decision, just as I support Wayne in his. You have brought about profound change in yourself and others, and through that, your cup is full. Always, Susan. P.S. Please allow me to extend my family tradition to your sister by sharing an angel food cake with her on her birthday. When is her birthday, John?
By the time you receive this letter, I will be gone. I hope it finds you doing well, and I hope it finds you cherishing each day with the reverence it deserves. I imagine you'll be in your garden tending to those beautiful rose bushes, making sure each one receives as much light and as much love as you have done for me.
Goodbye, my friend.
John.
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 John. John.
John. John.
John. P.S. Mavis' birthday is March the 15th. She adores angel food cake.